What are the opportunities you're missing out on because you are not giving yourself permission? To be able to take a look at one of them and start to tease it apart to say, okay, what is it about this particular situation that keeps me from engaging? And start to understand that, because it's inside of that we're going to find what's elevating the fear, what is feeling safer about not stepping out than it is about taking a chance.
And to that point, like, what is it costing you to play small?
Welcome back to Unapologetic Rabble-Rousers. I'm Carla Lewis.
I am DocShellie. Today, we're going to carry on the conversation from our last episode where we were talking about owning your rebelliousness and using your voice. And we're going to expand on the notion of who says we can't.
Oh.
So really thinking about challenging those invisible rules that we all experience, those expectations that people have placed upon us. And I'm sure there's going to be a story or two along the way. No. Something that we need to consider is, are we telling ourselves we can't?
Okay.
So other people may be telling us that, but when we tell ourselves that, it's no good. So what is something that you've told yourself you can't do?
Wow, it would be picking amongst them. There have been a number of things that I told myself I couldn't do. And I think one of them was that I couldn't make a difference outside of an organization. That being the person I am and the work that I love to do, that I'm driven to do, that I'm good at doing, had been delivered for the greatest part of it inside an organization where I was already a member of a team. I was a captive resource in a sense. So I had an idea that I wanted to be able to do things outside of that setting, but the doubt that I could be as successful without the sponsorship that came naturally from within, I had doubts. I'm past it. I'm past it now. But that was a big stopper. And you and I have had discussions about that. Not that anybody else should care, but it's been a part of a journey for me. And there's still those inklings. Can I be successful? And the answer is yes. The only one standing in my way, the only one, God bless you.
Thank you.
The only one standing in my way is me.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. I was kind of thinking about that. And I remember when I was leaving my first corporate job, like walking away from a 6-figure salary and all the things. And at first it was kind of like, why should you do, like, why would you do that? Who are you to do that? You shouldn't do that. And so many people were like, you can't leave that job. Are you crazy? You get paid really well. And I'm effing miserable. Yeah, I do. I get paid really, really well for what I do. And I have a lifestyle that liked the income. But not at the cost of being miserable.
Right.
And I'll never forget, because my father was one of the people who said, you can't leave. And not a month later, I was talking to somebody else who just had a ton of respect for my dad and really saw him as a great mentor. And he was like, yeah, your dad encouraged me to leave my job. And I was like, what? He encouraged you to leave your 6-figure job and flat out told me, no, you can't do that. He's like, well, it's different when it's your kid. And I'm like, is it though? Is it really? And why should it be different? It was very interesting.
And just the other observation being,
he was a man and I'm a woman.
Right.
It was like, you're lucky that you have a job that pays you that much money.
Yes.
That was like the underlying message, and look, lucky or not, I was well qualified to do my job, and I
Yeah.
did it really, really well. So it was an interesting thing
Mm.
that happened. But and you think about, where do these things come from, right? Family, culture, whatever religious institutional thing you may have been involved in, workplace norms. They come from a lot of different places and a lot of different voices. Often the loudest one is us saying, "Who am I?"
I so agree with that.
Yeah.
And being able to recognize that the first person that's going to tell you no and you really honor it is you.
Is yourself. Yeah.
And and we talked a little bit in the last episode about, well, not a little bit, we talked a lot about the common laws, the routines and the this is the way it is kind of thinking that we've grown numb to. And we encouraged people to start really finding the rebel in them that says, I'm going to challenge these things that I've just become so accustomed to and are not serving me.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to recognize that in order to unleash the beast, as we said
Mm-hmm.
before, is to recognize what's holding the beast back in the first place. And how often is it that it's just you?
Right.
And who are you to tell you no?
Exactly. Don't hold yourself back. You think about how this shows up in so many ways, right? I want to ask for a raise. Oh, who am I to ask for a raise? Sometimes we're taught we can't be leaders because you're introverted, you're too quiet. Bullshit. I have been talking with some women recently who are in their 50s and 60s, and they want to do different careers. I'm too old to change my career. Who says? Who made that rule?
Just that one in particular really bugs me. The
I
whole
couldn't tell by your exasperated gasp.
just that whole notion that we buy into ageism
We do.
specifically for women.
Yeah.
And there's grateful for the fact that there are emerging voices that are helping to dial back this whole notion that you have an expiration date, you may still be alive, but your usefulness has run out, is so wrong. And we think about even organizations that are now learning that being able to hire or engage with elders
Mm-hmm.
who have tremendous experience and knowledge and insight. And they're not there trying to take over the world. They're trying to help contribute to a better one.
Mm-hmm.
So that one in particular really gets me.
Yeah. Yeah. And we think about, where these rules come from, and they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I said it in the last episode, it is time that we start knocking those rules down. They
Absolutely.
don't need to exist anymore. This whole, notion of for how many decades have a lot of families had dual incomes? This notion that women need to stay home and keep the kitchen and raise the kids. It's not a thing for a lot of people. People can't afford to do that anymore.
Mm-mm.
And you think about, still in the workplace, women often take a back seat because that's what was expected.
And how many of those that are in the back seat were put there by themselves, back to the plain small, and were pressed there by norms that have gone unchallenged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and family can do that. Don't rock the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you want people to like you. This is what success looks like.
So how do we cut through the clutter, the din of the noise that we're making inside of ourselves to drown out and maybe the courageous part of us? What do we do to cut through that? What do we do to give ourselves permission?
I think The internal voice is probably going to be the loudest one, right? It's
Mhm.
tapping into our fear. It's tapping into the whole everything that comes with imposter syndrome. It's tapping into that perfectionism, all those things that we talked a little bit about in the last episode. So, like, really think about where are you missing the opportunities because you don't think you're worthy, because you don't think you deserve it, because you don't think you're good enough. What are those missed opportunities?
And let me ask a question in that as you're going through these questions, Michelle. So, being able to just think about you've opened the door, invited people to consider what are the opportunities you're missing out on because you are not giving yourself permission. To be able to take a look at one of them and start to tease it apart to say, okay, what what is it about this particular situation that keeps me from engaging in a
Hmm.
way that's more wholly, that I'm more wholly present to it, and start to understand that, because it's inside of that that we're going to find what's elevating the fear, what is feeling safer about not stepping out than it is about taking a chance.
Hmm. Yes, and to that point, like, what is it costing you to play small?
Yes.
What is it costing you? It's great to look at the opportunities that are missed, but what is it costing you to play small? I think that's a really powerful question to consider because every time we shrink back, it just reinforces our belief that we aren't capable.
Hmm.
Stop shrinking back. Stop it.
The back is full already, so don't keep trying to squeeze into the back. Get no room left.
Exactly. Exactly. So I mean, if you think about, we experience these rules every day, all day long. Think about what is one of those rules that you want to change, that you want to challenge, that you're ready to challenge, whether it's not speaking up in meetings, it's not standing up for yourself in conversation that you're having with somebody, it's a conflict at work that needs to be resolved. There's a just everyday things that we face that we can start standing up for ourselves. We can start to play bigger. We can challenge those norms and those things that we're experiencing. And it
And
doesn't
what
have to be earth shattering, it doesn't have to be world changing, but it can change your world.
Absolutely. And the things you were bringing up, those are all conditions, those are all circumstances that we are manufacturing. It isn't really starting from the outside in. Those locks and the doors that bar entry into the next level of whatever are ones that we have put in place. We need to understand those and get them unlocked.
Yeah. I remember years ago I was dating this guy and I'd lived out of the country for a little while and I came back and he was like, "Wow, you've changed." And I said, "I know, isn't it a beautiful thing?" He was like, "I don't know about that, but but I loved that response to you've changed."
Hmm.
And when he said it, I didn't know if he meant it by it was good or bad. I didn't know. I could take a guess. It probably wasn't positive just based on who he was. But, but when I said that, I know, isn't it a beautiful thing? He was like, eh, meh. He didn't know what to say. But I thought, yeah, I have come back a different human being and I learned a lot and I experienced a lot and I'm good with the changes that I
Yeah.
made.
Yes.
So recognize that people are going to recognize that you are using your voice, that you aren't playing small anymore. Some people are going to be like, you go, girl, you go, guy. And other people are going to be like, what is happening? You've changed. But you're not changing for others, you are changing for you. It's really important to remember that.
Absolutely. Being able to take those steps that get you closer, let me say it, get you farther from the back, and then getting you closer to actually being confident in the way that you are taking those steps, being confident that you have a place, you have a voice, you have a reason, you have
Yeah.
contributions to make. Don't stop it. Don't get in their way.
Yeah, exactly. I heard this the other day. It went something like this. Every rule you think you have to follow is worth questioning, which I 1,000% agree with. Every rule you think you have to follow is worth questioning because sometimes the only thing standing between you and the life you want is a belief that you didn't choose.
Whoa.
That's deep.
Think about that. The beliefs you choose and then the ones that you don't.
That you didn't choose. Yeah, that you don't choose. How many times well, I'll use myself. So many times early on in my career, I was told how good I was, how smart I was, how thoughtful I was, how like I'm a quick decision maker, I'm very strategic in my thinking. Now I know all those things to be true. At the time, I was like, this is who I am. Like, it's not a big deal. It's how I think. It's how my brain works. I have no control over it. But it was really interesting because people were surprised sometimes that me, a mere individual contributor, could have a brain that had good ideas and had strategic thinking behind the ideas that I shared. I didn't recognize myself as being a strategic thinker. That's how I think. I can't, I remember throughout my entire career, people would ask me, how do you build relationships? You're really good at building relationships. I'm like, I just do. I don't know. Like,
I just be me.
I am who I am. But it's interesting as you think about, yes, it is who I am, but I'm also very intentional in how I communicate with people and how I approach people and what I think about people. So yeah, I am good at building relationships. Yes, I am a good strategic thinker. I am a fast decision maker. And to lean into those things as being positive versus negative, as they were often portrayed to me, was when I was really able to fully stand in my power and to recognize the very thing that some people find super annoying about me is my superpower. And you know why they find it annoying? Because it scares the shit out of them because they know they could do it too.
It's so true.
So I love that notion of really leaning into the thoughts that you believe and the beliefs that you didn't choose. I could have chosen to not believe I'm a strategic thinker. And how that would have impacted me, I probably would have never become a titled leader. I probably would have never been able to build strategies with confidence. It would have limited my career choices. It would have limited the jobs I even thought about applying for. But I stand in it. I am a strategic thinker. I'm always thinking 25 steps ahead. What I had to learn was I can't bring somebody into that 25th step when I haven't talked to them about the first 24. I'll think, oh, yeah, I had this really quick thought process in my head in 5 minutes that we've been in conversation. And then I land on, here's what we're going to do. No, that comes across as bitchy and too bossy. I get that. Early on in my career, I didn't. So now I got to take people on the journey. This is what I'm thinking, blah, 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 blah. Here's what I recommend. Oh, it's amazing how that lands so much differently. Because I've had to take that superpower and harness it a little bit.
It's about establishing the relationship and then allowing that person to actually have a functioning role in it by helping to nurture their understanding so that maybe they won't catch up, but they'll at least understand and recognize what it is that's going on. I can so appreciate that. How many times do you feel like you've just been brought into the middle or the closing arguments of a trial of some kind? It's like, what?
And for you, it just came out of left field where I've been thinking about it and like I got the whole thing worked out Bam.
Yeah, what do you mean you don't get it? How could you not understand this? It's so clear. Well, yeah, except I
Exactly.
haven't seen any of it yet. So
Exactly.
I love the piece about recognizing your superpower and also recognizing the need to throttle it
Yes.
appropriately given the
Yes.
circumstances. It doesn't
Oh, yeah.
reduce your superpower. It channels it in such a way that others can come along with you.
When you can, exactly, when you can fully understand your superpower and you know when to full on go and you know when to throttle back, it changes the trajectory of how you use it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much more powerful. I remember early on in my career, I used to work, I'm a high D on the disc, you know, kind of think about an eagle when you think about birds, you know, big, bold, fierce, fast decision maker. I'm all those things. And I worked with a bunch of people that were also very high Ds, energetic, fast thinkers, fast decision makers, like to tell people what to do. And so we worked amazingly well together. We would argue about stuff, we would be in conflict with stuff. It was never personal. It always made our work that much better. But when we started to go out into the business to explain what we were doing or to get somebody to buy in on something we were doing, we learned real quick that we cannot approach people who are not high Ds like we all had been approaching each other. It was a disaster.
I can just imagine.
You know, so if you think about a project that you need to get done. It might be building some cabinets. High D, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to dump all the crap out, I'm going to start building it. Somebody else who's going to see that, they're going to unpackage it very carefully. They're going to make sure every single part is there, everything looks good. They're going to read the instructions step by step by step before they even pick up a tool. Now imagine that person who is so methodical being approached by somebody who's like, "Hey, here's what we're going to do." Like immediately put back on their heels.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a great learning experience for all of us because we had spent so much time together. We just assumed everyone operates just like we do. They don't. But knowing your superpower is kind of like that. When you're with people who have a similar superpower, you can go 1,000%. But when you're with people who don't have the same superpower, throttle it back, bring them in for the ride, and you'll go far.
So important. It's really mutual respect in action
Hmm.
because if we're trying to communicate in a way that allows people to understand and come along, be a part of, then we're going to pay attention to that. If instead we have given ourselves permission to say what we want to say, come hell or high water, and we don't care who gets hurt in the meantime,
Right.
not so good.
Yeah. And I think, it's interesting when you said that because I know so many people will say, well, I don't care. That's just who I am. So
Yeah.
you want to be a jerk? Okay, cool. We can say what we need to say in a way that is still respectful. It
Mhm.
can be heard. People might get upset. It's okay. When you go into a conversation with the right intent and you deliver it without harm, you're good. Let people have their feelings. It's okay.
Yes.
Let them get mad at you. It's okay. It makes a big difference with the intent that you're having with a conversation. If you don't care how people think and how they feel, that's on you.
Hmm.
And that is not gonna bode well for you. I always joke I don't really give a crap what people think about me, but I do. But what I really care about is the impact I'm having on other people.
Yes.
And if I go in and I know that I've done the best I can, I've said what I needed to say, and I did it with respect, and I did it with some level of compassion and concern, I have no control over how someone's going to react.
Mm-mm.
And it's important to recognize that. So I know so many people are afraid of standing up for themselves. They'll walk away from a situation and say, I really wish I would have said X, Y, and Z.
Oh, we've covered this. Yeah.
Well, why didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't want them to get upset with me. I didn't want to hurt their feelings. But it's okay for your feelings to be hurt.
Yeah.
It's
For you,
okay for you to feel like crap. No.
there's another one of those routine things that you could really you could dig into that and make a huge difference in your life.
Exactly.
Understanding what it is that you decide you're not going to speak up and why.
Hmm.
And then what's that all about?
Exactly.
You can't hurt someone that doesn't let you hurt them. I mean, you can't control what they're going to do with what they hear from you. And you can't control if they're going to make a decision to feel hurt. I mean, it just, you can't.
Hmm.
You can't.
And you shouldn't take on that responsibility at all.
Mm-mm.
So stand up for yourself. Stop telling yourself you can't do things. Lean into your superpowers. Find your superpowers.
You all have them.
Every single one of us has at least one superpower. Some of us are blessed with more. But really, stop telling yourself you can't. At the end of the day, you are the loudest voice holding yourself back. And so think about, where is it that you're holding yourself back? What is the fear that's holding you back? Give that fear a name. Tell your CEO brain to tell that fear brain to knock it off and to get out of the way, because we are going to move forward. And challenge those norms that just don't fit anymore. Challenge those norms that drive you bananas to the core of who you are.
Don't
Start,
settle.
don't settle. Start small, but start. Take that first step.
With that, I'm Carla Lewis.
I'm DocShellie. We'll see you next time. Every rule you think you have to follow is worth questioning, because sometimes the only thing standing between you and the life you want is a belief that you didn't choose.